Today is a little different. We're going to get into something that's dear and a lot of things that people are fighting against, their will to live. And there are some things that are haunting us and going at us, and there's a core reference where it comes from. And we're just going to listen to a gentleman talk by the name of Jay Katz, and we're going to be reacting today to the Soft White Underbelly podcast. This is why I unalived my parents. Check it out, y'all. It's interesting.
People are like, oh, no, that's bullshit. That's fake. His story's fake. And then in the comments, people are like, Google him and you'll see it's not fake. The day before, on August 10th, 1991, I had traveled over to my mother's apartment, and I was struggling. I was hurting so bad on the inside, and I was depressed, and I saw no future for myself.
I'm going to stop it right there really quickly. If you're feeling that way about yourself, get you some help right away. We're going to put a hotline down in the description where you can call someone, a national hotline, something that you can do to save yourself, to find some importance in your life, because you're important. You are good enough for right now.
And I knew my time was coming to an end, and I had these constant thoughts of dying by my own hand. And I felt like if I didn't kill myself, then my father would, because we had had so many fights and arguments and everything that had led up to that. I had no hope. Like, I had no hope in my own future.
Development of parenthood and passing down gems and wisdom is so important. I'm a father, and I take it very seriously, and I'm very protective of my child. And the growing narrative is that we can let the community just raise our child, because our circumstances, financial circumstances, time to spend with our children, we kind of like, many of us are selfish. We didn't have kids to raise them. We had kids out of a good time making the kids. But these things lead to a lot of problems if you are with the wrong person, if you're not aligned, if you didn't plan this out correctly, if you're making just poor decisions. And I'm talking to both sides, men and women. We're out here making poor decisions that affects people's lives. Now, I'm not admonishing this gentleman for unaliving his parents, but if you hear the heartfelt, distraught connection he's having right now with his memories, it tells you that it comes from a place of no love, no real empathy for what he was going through. Let's see what else he had to say.
And I just wrestled with that all day on the 10th. And I tried, that evening I tried to sleep it off. I went into my mother's personal stash of drugs. She had been hoarding Percocet. She had maybe 1,000 pills. And I'll probably talk about how she got those a little bit later. But I took some of those Percocets because I'd been using her Percocet, and that was one of my drugs of choice. And I was just trying to medicate myself. I'd been trying to medicate myself just for years and years.
Certain things just hit me. He said one of my drugs of choice. You have a choice. And most of the times as kids, if you're fortunate enough, you see what these things do to people. You see what enhancements or drugs do to people. So you have a choice to say to yourself, do I want to know what that feels like? Or do I never want to know what that feels like? When you see outcomes, when you see what happens to people. John Sally told a famous story saying he's never tried a certain particular choice of drug because he's seen a person who was drafted with him die from it. And that sobered him up right away. These are things that you have to pay attention to and have to respect yourself for enough. And that's where a lot of these things happen, because it's escapism and you don't have a purpose. You don't know where you're going. It's not too late for you. Even if you indulge, you have a harder road in front of you. I will acknowledge that. Once we open Pandora's box of certain things, you can't put the ketchup back in the bottle, genie back in the bottle, how you want to phrase this. It's going to be difficult for you. Every day will be a fight. Every hour, every minute that you're dealing with this. However, you can. You definitely can. And there's other things that you're going to establish and come up upon because of your disciplines that's going to overshadow with greatness instead of things that you did in your past that made you be off road, off kilter a little bit. As long as you have breath in your body and able to move and move around, you have the ability to make changes and you have choices that you can make. And let's hear the rest of this man's story because I'm eager to hear how this thing is going to unfold.
By any way possible. And I was able to get to sleep. And then the next morning was August 11 of 1991. And I woke up and I just felt like that day was the last day of my life. Like I just felt it at the core of my being. And before my mother woke up, I went and took her handgun. She had a .38 special. It was a 5-shot Smith & Wesson. And I took 2 bottles of her Percocet, and there were 100 pills in each bottle. So it was 200 Percocet, and her gun, and a whole bunch of bullets. And she was still sleeping, and she didn't know. And then I left her apartment, I got in the car, and I drove back to my dad's house.
So this tells you right now that his parents were separated and that he's probably dealing with the stresses of that as well. Sounds like he had an abusive father. And it also sounds like he had a mother who didn't necessarily make the proper adjustments to make sure he didn't have access to certain things. And it seems a little toxic, not to be judgmental, but I'm listening to what he's saying. And I want everybody who's listening to this to look at this not as a sad story, but an education. You see the mistakes of others, and now you can realize and say, what I'm not going to do, what I'm going to learn from this. Do you have the stuff put up in your house correctly? If you do have to take medicine for pain, if you do want to defend the household, is it locked away in a box? Are you creating relationships that's going to end up being severed and affecting your kids? Are you staying around for your kids? There's so many things that we can go into and digest, but I just want to hear the rest of this story, and I want you to learn from this particular gentleman, this situation, and look at the outcomes of what you're having in our societies when it comes to single parent homes, things not working out, school shootings, and things of that nature. How fast these things unravel, how people don't hear the inner voice of the person screaming for attention, screaming for love, screaming for progress.
And what I was thinking was, I'm going to take these pills, and then once I start to feel it, because Percocet was always such a comforting thing for me. Like it just took me to that space where I finally had quiet inside my head. And most of the time I feel like I have 5 different conversations going on all at the same time. And my inner dialogue is always so noisy and so critical and negative. That's how it'd been for so long. And I just, I didn't know how to manage it anymore. And it felt like it kept getting worse. And that emptiness in the core of my being I just couldn't feel, I felt hollow. I just felt hollow and empty. And I feel like I had no future.
When you ask someone how they're doing, do you really care? When you ask someone, hey, how are you today? Do you really care for the answer, or is it just a formality? Is this you? Are you the person he's speaking about? Are you mirroring him? Do you feel unseen? Do you feel hurt? Do you feel like an abomination? Do you feel like you're the least unimportant person in the room? Have you told anyone? Have you tried to transfer that energy, see if you get some good energy back by speaking to someone about this? There's a balance we all need to have. There's an importance. And yes, we live in a society where things get thrown to the side. People get bullied, get thrown to the side, and things are never heard. And then we have these outcomes, but we never ask how or why. Here at Solutions and Network, we always like to ask how and why did this happen, and get some anecdotal or broad scope anecdotes. And we're gonna listen to this man Jay Katz talk on this Soft White Underbelly podcast on why he unalived his parents. We're gonna continue to dive down this rabbit hole just for a few more minutes and check it out. But we're gonna leave the link in the description in the bio so you can look at the whole thing in its entirety.
And my thoughts were, I'm going to take these 200 Percocet and then I'm going to get messy. And I'm going to think about how I'm going to put the pistol to my temple and pull the trigger. And I thought about how I'm going to paint the wall and, and where the spray is going to go. And I wanted it to be as messy as possible. And I wanted my father to find it. Because
Whoa. Talking to the fathers right now. Attention, love, hugs is super important. And in certain countries around the world, there are things that stop you from seeing your kids. You're not enabled to see them. And I'm talking to the mothers right now, or the caregivers who are surrounding that process. If you're watching this and you are taking in this information, it is vital that these connections are built. If you happen to be a person who is a bad father, it is vital that you look beyond yourself and your insecurities and incapabilities and learn how to care. That's all it takes. The moment you first learn how to care for something is when you don't have that excuse anymore. You care about something. You just don't care enough to disseminate it. And I'm not judging fathers out there. There's some great fathers out there. There's some great fathers doing what they have to do, and they insert themselves in the places where they can get in where they fit in because of societal pressures. But the end result is very tragic if fathers are not aligned. Very tragic. Great fathers, good fathers, fair fathers, decent fathers, horrible fathers, you still yearn. The kids still yearn for your approval. They love you. They want your attention. They need it. They want it. They value it. Sometimes the rest of the world will suffer, or the rest of the world will gain from it.
At that time, I wanted him to know that that was his fault. Like I was just so stuck in feeling like his victim and my mother's victim and my stepmother's victim and a victim of life and circumstance. And the only way to get some power back was to get a weapon and to take my own life. Like I thought that was the ultimate act of defiance to the world and to everybody else, that I might not have power over the course of how my life turns out, but I have power over my death. Like I can do that. And nobody can take that from me because I'm going to take that for myself. And
I think you have the power to make changes as well. You have the power of life and death. We all do. We have the power of life and death. And then it's mentality and choices. But I will say this to you. You can make choices to be the villain or the victor of your story. When healing starts, if you have a low level of accountability, you're the victim. And once you build up and say, I took place in this, these things happened to me. But if you were abused and different things happened to you that you could not control, then forgiveness has to be there for you in order for you to transform yourself into the person you can shed your skin and get past it. Now, these words are easily said and done. There is so much work that goes into this. There's so much ignorance you will come from when you're abused. You don't know how to express yourself. You don't know how to do this or how to do that. However, understand there's nothing new under the sun. Find out some research. Find out how to win. Find out how to take care of yourself. And find out how to be the victor of your book and your story. You are the superstar in your movie. And what's taking place right now is your overall development, your overall courage to find the solutions of life. I'm Sheen. Make sure you hit like, share, and subscribe. We had to get real deep and real focused on this conversation just now. And I want you to shake this energy off and go be great, because you had to know what's going on out here. And this has been Solutions to Network. Peace and blessings.